Hello everyone, and welcome to another Atlantic Bushcraft Adventure podcast. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about cooking in the woods and just bushcraft cooking in general. Some of the things we like, some of the things we don't like, some of the things we've tried, and just our general experiences. So I know that Ben's actually way better set up than I am for this because I only have a handful of things here on my desk. So why don't we start right with you, Ben? What do you want to say about cooking right out of the gate?
Um, right out of the gate. Well, it's if you're going to spend time in the woods, whether it's a day trip or an overnight, you're probably going to want to eat. Um, and not everyone just wants to take like a cold food, so cooking is pretty well universally accepted as something to do in the woods. Growing up, we had the boil ups, which was really popular, and we just go in, make a cup of tea, maybe have some biscuits, and I think I've realized, and I was telling Robert about this a second ago, I have an addiction, and it's cook sets and cook systems. So I've got quite a bit here we can talk about, but generally, like I said, you're going to spend time in the woods, you're going to be wanting to cook something, and the systems you can get vary from as cheap as what would equate to about 10 cents of two pop cans cut up to literally hundreds of dollars where you can have something like a ridiculous oven that you can stick on top of a stove and cook muffins. So that's the range, I guess, of stuff that you can get into. But what makes a good trip is a great meal. I mean, I think you can agree with that, Robert.
Oh, 100%. I mean, way back in the first video, we said that a good night's sleep, being protected, and a full belly is what's going to make your time out there in the woods the most enjoyable as it can be.
Yeah. I mean, if you spend a full day slogging through the woods or paddling up a lake or hiking for a while, when you end the day, you want something nice and warm in your stomach, and you want something a bit hearty. And I've experimented with all kinds of things, and I'm sure most of the viewers and yourself have tried quite a bit of stuff. I've pre-frozen steaks so that they'll more or less stay cold the whole trip, so that the day I want to cook them, they're more or less ready to go. And fry up a nice steak or sausages, or
You eat like a king in the woods.
I try to.
Ah,
Most of my life I've ate well.
that's good, and that's the joke I always like to make. Hey there, Marcus. Just seen you join in there. The joke I like to make anytime I'm teaching any kind of a class or even giving a demonstration is, you can tell I'm fluffy, is what I like to say, or skinnyly challenged, but that's a plus. You always want to follow the fat guy in the woods because you know he eats. So that's
Yeah.
always my little joke, and I mean it's still kind of true. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go into the woods and starve to death. I can
Yeah,
guarantee
you
you
don't
I
want to trust the skinny survivalist, right?
well, not to my size anyway. I'm sure he could go in, have a lot of fun, eat some bugs and bushes, and be perfectly happy. I, on the other hand, have developed a lifestyle where I like to consume large amounts of greasy food. Or tasty food, not large amounts. But anyway, I have a certain, I don't want to say standard, but a certain expectation with food, I guess, and it's generally tastier than the bugs and bushes that somebody of maybe less size may bring to the table. Not 100%, but I mean in the general broad basting of a paintbrush.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into weight because, I mean, I think for most of my adult life, I've probably been bigger than you. I'm not quite there now. But I've changed my diet a lot, and I've, in the last year, lost a significant amount of weight, and I've still done a lot of my camping, so I've had to completely adjust what I take in the woods and how I cook it and stuff. So that's been an interesting challenge for me over the last year. It's not something that we will not talk about in the future, but I don't think that's the goal for this one. But there's so much you can take in the woods and so many options, and it's the sky's the limit. Whatever your taste is, if you want to have it in the woods, there's a way. You just have to think about it and work it out, and that's where a lot of these systems come in. And one of the coolest things I ever seen, I went on 2-night trip with a friend of mine down St. Croix River in New Brunswick, and we met up with a bunch of his friends, and we get to the campsite, and his buddy pulls out a big reflector oven out of the canoe, and he sets it up, and he's cooking muffins, and he's making all kinds of awesome things, like eggs Benedict. I'd never even had eggs Benedict, but he's making it in the woods, right? So I kind of learned from that and other people that the challenge isn't that you can't have anything you want in the woods. It's you just have to think your way through it. And I mean, I don't think anyone will ever deny this. Food tastes 10 times better in the woods. It really does.
Oh, I agree 100%. There's nothing like cooking something over an open fire, in my opinion. Anybody that likes barbecue and has never cooked in the woods, picture barbecue times 10 on steroids, and that's what cooking out in the woods tastes like, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. I mean, there's just something about sitting back on a log or a stump and having a nice thing of warm food when you're cold and you're hungry and you spent a whole day like really working it. And I mean, it's just an amazing feeling to just eat that food, and the flavors seem so much stronger, the smells seem so much stronger, and it's just such a satisfying experience.
And I don't know about you, but the little, I know somebody out there is going to say, well, what about the embers and the little bit of ash that gets in the food? You know what? It's a flavor enhancer. 100% flavor enhancer. If you have not had a steak with a tiny little bit of charcoal or ash on it, buddy, you haven't lived, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a spice that's well undersold in the stores, right?
Oh, for sure. That's a spice you can't replicate in a store. That is something you got to get out and just appreciate for yourself. And I mean, there's a couple people out there laughing, I'm sure, but I'm dead serious. It's an experience all on its own. The smoke from the fire adds some flavor. Literally, the tiny little bit of ash or charcoal or whatever you want to say will get on your food. And I mean, it after a while, you just come to accept it as part of it and appreciate it as part of the experience. Or at least I do. Your thoughts, Ben?
Oh yeah, I mean, even though it's like, if you get a bit of ash on your food, like it can be a little grating on the teeth, like you can feel it. It definitely adds to the flavor. It adds to the taste. It adds to the experience. It's not something that you'll ever quite have anywhere else. Every fire is different. It cooks a little different. Every method that you'll use in the woods is a little different, and you know, it's you live with it, you roll with it, and you just enjoy it. And it's I haven't had a bad meal in the woods, I don't think.
No, and I'm much like you. I don't think I've had a bad meal in the woods either. And for anybody that's still laughing about the charcoal, keep in mind, charcoal will clean your teeth, clean your pots, and settle your stomach. So it has multiple benefits by getting into your food. That's my 2 cents of wisdom for today.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, it's, you know.
So anyway, Ben, let's jump right into her. I know you have a couple different setups there that we were talking about right before we got into the actual live broadcasting there, and you got a great selection comparatively to what I have here. So first up, why don't we talk a little bit about methods of cooking in the woods when it comes to heating sources. So, I mean, the common one that comes to mind right off the top is, of course, you just build a fire and you cook over it, right? You'll probably end up using some sort of cook system, which we'll talk about in a second. But the other option that you have, especially this time of year where there's burn bans in effect and you have to check to burn, and if it's over or if it's in the red area, you can't burn. If it's in the orange area, you can't burn until after 7. And there's all kinds of different things going on there. So, I know some of the stoves that we may talk about may fall under contained burning devices, which are actually okay during open burns, and I am not in any way endorsing anyone to go out and take any kind of these stoves we're going to talk about and go have a fire in the woods. You have to do your research, check into it, make sure your stove is compliant. Your best way is to call a natural resources office, of course. That's my disclaimer for this talk right off the gate. But yeah, some of the stoves that we use. Gas-fying stoves were the first one that came up, much like this little lovely thing here, and I think you got one there.
And I have its cousin.
Exactly, so...
and I like these. These fold up to about the size of the bottom and came in a nice package, and they work well. Like they burn the smallest twigs, brush. One of my favorite fuels, one of my dirty little secrets that I mentioned I have is wood pellets is something I've taken and used in these.
And how's that work?
They work really well. And you take like a Ziploc bag, fill them in, you can pour, half a cup, quarter cup into the bottom, a few twigs and stuff, and you get a more consistent burn, and it's something. Even if you have like if it's wet and horrible, you have something to start your fire with. So it's a little trick I use. It's people can experiment with it, and let us know what if they've used that method or something similar.
Yeah, by all means. I never thought about using wood pellets in myself, and I mean, that's actually a great idea, especially if you're already burning wood pellets, because they're only like $6 a bag.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're only $5-6 a bag, and honestly, if you're only using them for camping like I do, it's like a lifetime supply.
Fair enough, fair enough. One thing I will mention about any of these little stoves is keep in mind that it's a small area, so your fuel source is going to be limited by the size of your stove. So, I mean, that's my hand over this, and it's not that deep either, so you have to keep that in mind when you're cooking. Now, that being said, if you have nice dry hardwood, you'd be surprised how much you can cook off what's in there.
They're amazingly efficient for their size, and when you can't have a big fire, you want to really control it. It's a great method. And I want to bring up that you don't have to go on Amazon or anywhere really and buy one of these for, I don't know, I think I paid $20-something for this one. The Bush Buddy, the brand name one, I think costs like $120.
Yeah, I was gonna say Solo Stove made one too, I think, and
so I've made this one. It's I think like a tomato can and a bean can. Just drilled some holes in the bottom and the top. You can find the instructions online. The grate that I got on top, I got a little hole cut in it for putting brush through. I got one in the bottom of the inside one. They all snap together. I mean, this thing literally cost me garbage. And you can make one. I mean, pennies. Literally.
Exactly. And something I want to draw attention to for anybody that's not watching us live here, if you're listening to our audio streams, all the stoves that Ben has shown so far actually have a cutout where you can put your wood in or your fuel source in. If you are thinking about building or buying one of these stoves, that's something to keep in mind. Mine does not have that, and it is one of the drawbacks that I will say right off the top with my gasifying stoves. I have to remove the pot from the stove to put my fuel in and then replace the pot back, which is just, it's an inconvenience. It's not a deal breaker. Don't get me wrong. I've used the stove lots. I had great luck with it. It's just one of those things for the same price.
Yeah.
The whole is definitely worth it if anybody's questioning that at all.
And the other dirty little secret I wanted to quickly talk about, and some people may have already be aware of this. I think there's a product out there called the Pocket Bellows, and it's an extendable rod, hollow, like a TV antenna, or if anyone still remembers what those are, or the back scratchers at the dollar store, I think is where this one came from. I tore the ends off of it. It used to have a little handle on it and a like a hand on the other end. I tore it all off. You can put that down into the stove and blow right into it, and you can really get your fire going and control it. Like if it starts to go down or whatever, if it's dying because of wet brush or something, you can really bring it back. Quick little thing, weighs next to nothing, very convenient, something that if anyone wants to invest another $1 in their kit, there's a quick, easy tool that really, and it works good with the fireplace too. If you got like trying to start a fire, you got your little bird's nest or whatever you call it. You got your ember in there, and you're trying to concentrate a bit of air on that to get it going. You're not breathing in the smoke. You're not getting in your eyes. It's super convenient. I highly recommend it.
And like you said, for $1, it's going to make your life simpler. I mean, that there's nothing finer, as you know. That's my shtick, is what I call budget bushcrafting. So for $1, that's on a budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I think most bushcrafters are a bit into trying to save a few bucks. When you go on to any of the sites, everyone's always talking about how you can squeeze that extra dollar, or how you can get something equivalent for a lot less. And what I got here in my hand is another sort of a thing. I think there's a Tangera stove you can buy. Takes alcohol, really cheap. You can make an equivalent with the bottom of 2 pop cans. Penny stove, I think, is the name it goes by. Look it up on YouTube, anywhere. The instruction to make it are there. I make these now in about 5-6 minutes. I've made them for coworkers. I hear just power out, I'll pop one out and just toss it on their desk as a joke. It's that easy.
Well, I got a question for you while you have it up there because I know it was something that I researched a lot when I was looking at making those alcohol stoves. Do you put any kind of fiberglass in yours, or is yours empty inside, or do you use rolled up cardboard? I've seen different ideas of what to put in there to be like a fuel stabilizer. What's your thoughts there?
Most of mine are empty. But I have tried like the fiberglass. You're supposed to be able to use a carbon fiber, no, not carbon fiber,
Oh, like that.
char- charcoal cloth, like in the fish tank.
Oh, I was gonna say that. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, okay.
A carbon cloth.
Carbon pack, yeah, carbon filter pack or something like that.
Some people have used something similar to that. I think anything that's somewhat spongy that won't burn, that would hold fuel and prevent it to waste. But the reality is, if you use with these for a little while, you'll learn pretty quickly that so much volume, it might be an ounce, will boil your pot once you get these dialed in, and you'll figure out how much you need. And most people just put what they need in it, boil the pot. These are really good for dehydrated meals, things that you just need boiled water for, quick cup of tea. You can adjust the size and stuff for bigger and smaller, but they do work. They work well. And as you experiment with them, if you have a fire reflector or wind reflector around it, you'll start to learn that the outside temperature really affects these. And that's the neat thing is, and the difficult thing is, if it gets too hot, it vaporizes more, it burns faster, and it'll burn the fuel out quicker. If you get it too cold, it won't run right. So you're always balancing with them. But they're a lot of fun. There's a lot of tricks out there. People got dampers they put on them, control the flame. Like, beep.
Yeah, beep. My phone went off.
Yeah.
Ah, somebody talking to us.
So a neat little thing. Like I said, doesn't cost a lot of money.
You mentioned something about a windscreen. I know that's something else that you probably have sitting right there. Oh, you don't have a windscreen. Oh, goodness, Ben. I thought you had one. I just stuck you out to dry. Anyway, when we say windscreen, guys, it's literally just something that you can put around your little burn system, burn setup, cook system, whichever way you want to say it. It just blocks the wind, contains the heat, and focuses your heat from going up a little bit more, or focuses it to go up a little more, so you lose a little less from radiation. But the big thing is it blocks the wind, and you don't get that sideways column of like the wind driving your fire out from underneath whatever you're cooking on.
Yeah. Now, one of the neat things I've seen someone do. I think I've seen Mark Young do it, but there was a couple guys on YouTube have definitely done it. I thought of it for years and never actually tried it. I think it's the vegetable steamers that fold right down and then open up like a flower.
Yep.
I've seen somebody using one of those where they put an alcohol stove in it or something and used it to prevent it's a neat idea. But the other one that I've seen that I kind of liked is the takeaway pizza foil container pans. Guys just cut a square out of that and shape it to whatever they want, and when it breaks or wears away, just
buy new pizza, new windscreen made.
Yeah. Don't leave it in the woods. Just don't do that.
No, and anytime, guys. If you go into the woods, leave it the way you found it, of course. Take all your garbage out. Don't screw it up. It just makes the rest of us look bad, in all honesty. If you're out there, you're having fun, and you want to continue having fun, just make the place a little nicer than when you got there, if there is such a thing, or at least just as nice as before you got there.
Yeah, I kind of like the leave no trace method, and that's one of the reasons I'm kind of use some of the gear I use. And I've seen some neat things that I haven't even had a chance to try. A buddy of mine uses a big bowl. He takes it, he puts it in his pack, but it's a big stainless steel bowl, and he lights his fires and stuff in that.
Neat idea. Never thought about doing that.
He cooks over that, but like I said, it reflects the heat back in on itself. It keeps it dry and keeps it protected from the land. It doesn't leave any marks. With the Bushcraft, we were doing a training one day, and this guy took it, and it is a kind of impressive thing. And they learned it in one of their fire lighting courses. You just put all your brush in there, light your fire in there, contain it all, and once the fire's out, you can just tip the thing over, clean somewhere safe, and it only takes a couple seconds for it to cool down.
Yeah, no, it sounds like an awesome idea. It's actually something I may give a try in doing this summer if I can find a nice big steel bowl. Value Village will be my friend there, I think.
Yeah, I think Dollar Store probably has decent ones too.
Maybe towards Truro and Halifax there might be some more. Down here, there's our dollar store doesn't have much in the line of stainless steel. I go in there and I rate it every chance I get, and I mean, I haven't even found one of the utensil holders that everybody says they can find.
Even Elmsdale has that.
Yeah, no, we don't have it down here. We got a pretty small dollar store down here in New Glasgow. But moving on, you have a twig stove too, one of the little box twig stoves. Do you not, there, sir?
Yes. So these here, I mean, these are awesome. They fold up to next to nothing. They got their limitations. Everything does, but and I will not be able to fold this up. No, there it is. So it folds up like that. Like, I mean, it literally fits in your back pocket, no problem. Smaller than your wallet, and it comes with the little alcohol thing to stick underneath it to catch the ash. Is what I do use it for. And it came in a small bag, similar to this one, but not this one.
Just turn my phone off.
Small bag like that. So I mean, that's a great thing, and I don't think these cost all that much on Amazon. But if you're just going in for a hike, you're not carrying a big pack or something, and you want to be able to cook a big meal or a small meal, or just have a cup of tea, a great little option.
Good. The other common method that people out there are probably going to use for their cooking setup is little butane or propane stoves. And I think I've seen you holding one up there just in the background. Yeah, there's no sense in me going to get mine because it's the exact same one then. So anybody that's seeing there, it's a little butane topper. I don't know what Ben paid for his, but I know you can pick them up online starting around $9. Keep in mind, you sometimes get what you pay for. So your $9 one may work for a summer. If you buy like one of the $50 ones, you may get several years out of it. You're just going to have to try it, in all honesty. I mean, I bought a $9 one. It's been working good for 2 years, but I can see how it would break down really quick if you weren't really careful with it.
Mine's a Primus from Canadian Tire, and I did pay a little bit more than I normally pay for some of this stuff. But we were going on a trip where we were told no fires for cooking. And we thought about the different, like the twig stoves and stuff, and said, like, let's take something that's reliable, quick. This is kind of windproof. They're a bulletproof system. I have occasionally found the tanks difficult to get. A lot of times Canadian Tire seems to be sold out, and it goes weeks and weeks before you can get any more there.
Well, they pulled them off the shelves there for a couple months, just this, I think just this fall or last fall, they pulled them off for like 16 weeks. Apparently there was a recall safety concern on them, and they just did not have them for a long time. I ended up ordering one from MEC.
Yeah, so. I got mine from Home Hardware.
Oh, never even thought about going there. But sorry, go ahead.
No, but I mean, they are normally readily available. So, but if you can't find them, they're useless, right?
Exactly, and that's just it. And some of the other options you can get is there's Coleman stoves, there's propane burners. I mean, your fire methods or your heating methods is one thing, and we touched on a few of them there. But what about actual cooking, Ben? What's your preference for cooking, cook set wise?
Sort of a go-to. It's just
well, not that anymore because you just threw it away.
It's still good. It's tough.
Okay.
It's just a simple, lightweight pot. I mean, you can boil water in it. You can rehydrate food in it. A lot of things I take, like oatmeals or oatmeal-type foods, can be quickly done in these. I can throw a bit of bacon in the bottom and crisp it up. I often take the Ready Crisp bacon now.
Funny enough, I just bought a whole bunch. It was on sale in Halifax.
Yeah, and that stuff's neat because it weighs a lot less because it's already pre-cooked pretty well. It doesn't need to be refrigerated, so you can take it in, and it definitely adds a lot of flavor to some things that we eat. So it works well for what I eat, and it's easy to take, lightweight. So something like that. But I have, like I said earlier, a bit of an addiction. So we were discussing this, me and Robert, off camera. I found this little cast iron cook set at Canadian Tire. Paid a few bucks for it. And what did we figure out? It weighed like 2.4 pounds.
Yeah, you were saying it was quite heavy. I actually grabbed my cast iron frying pan there for anybody watching live, and it's one that I would take if I was going for a few days, because I weighed this sucker out, and it's a little bit more than 2.5 pounds. We're up to like the 6 to 7 pounds on this one.
So if you're going ultra light, this is not the meat for you. But you can't beat a frying pan right on the hot coals.
No,
and you can't hurt it. Like that fire's not going to warp that frying pan. It's going to cook evenly. You know, it's a bulletproof system. It truly is. It's hard to beat a cast iron fire.
100% agree. Cast iron is my opinion, one of the best methods of cooking. Like you said, you can't warp this on a fire. One of the ways I season a pan, honestly, is to literally just use it in coals. I know a lot of people do it in their ovens and stuff like that, or buy the pre-seasoned pans, which this one is. It's one I haven't actually taken into the woods yet. But the first time I take that in the woods, I'll probably cook on it once, and then if I have some time, I'll reseason it in the coals. And that's one of my favorite methods of using it, and you can scrub it out. I mean, they are bulletproof, they hold heat, they cook even, and they love lard. Yeah, see, there's a tiny one.
Yeah, this was like 4 inches diameter. I mean, like, palm size. Perfect for like a single egg.
And that's the thing. A lot of people, like this here is your standard 10-inch cast iron frying pan, which is all good and dandy. Don't get me wrong, I can cook for 3-4 people on that all at once and have a great time. But for myself, that little one that you just held up, Ben, I would probably take that with me and cook my entire meal on it. I would just cut everything to fit in that pan.
And it weighs just under a pound.
So there you go. See, like that's a great find right there. And sorry, go ahead.
The wife picked this one up at the pharmacy, and I think it came with a little packet of cookie mix, and you could cook a single cookie in it in the oven.
That's awesome.
And we bought a bunch of them, I think, and gave some out and stuff. But yeah, it's a neat little thing. Like I said, it weighs a pound. It's a luxury item if you're trying to do ultralight stuff, but it's hard to beat, you know?
Oh, for sure. Like, once again, I'm a huge advocate for cast iron. A question I was going to ask you, Ben, and I kind of forgot to ask you when you held it up. Your cook set there, is that steel, titanium, or aluminum?
I think this one's aluminum.
Okay. And what's your feelings on the aluminum cook sets? Because I know somebody out there is going to ask this.
For the amount I actually cook in aluminum, like it's only when I get out in the woods, and this one here has some kind of like coating. I'm not too worried about it.
No, neither am I, honestly. But it was a big thing that you see a lot in a lot of the cooking sections of bushcrafting forums or websites or videos and things like that is aluminum safe to cook with. And there's actually a good video on YouTube, which I don't have the link for, but just look up aluminum applesauce test, and within a couple of them there's a guy taking out all these old aluminum things and he puts applesauce in them, and the idea is if the applesauce turns a reddish color, that it's bleaching out some aluminum oxide. And at the end of the day, it came down to, if you got some really, really old aluminum cook stuff that's like the surface is all pitted and going real bad, that's about the only time it's going to start taking a little bit out. And honestly, you're still not going to get enough to really hurt you. There was a lot of rumors and stuff about aluminum oxide and Alzheimer's and things like that. And if you look it up online, it's literally a 50-50 split. Some people say it might have something to do with it. Some people are advocates and say no, it doesn't. By all means, do your own research, ladies and gents. But in my personal opinion, if you have an aluminum cook set, you're fine. Especially if it's a modern cook set. Don't worry about it. Go out and have some fun.
So just because I'm pretty sure I know who the video you were talking about, I'm pretty sure it's Really Big Monkey.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and he's an interesting case. I've watched quite a few of his videos. He's got some very knowledgeable videos out there that I've really enjoyed. So if you guys got a chance, check him out. He's got some good stuff out there. He's got a great one that I would look up on how to get found, or how to find your way to the woods if you got a compass. Even if you don't have a map or anything, he's got a plan, and it's a pretty solid little plan. I'm not going to explain it here this time, but it's something we probably will talk about in the future.
If I can find his channel, I will put it in the description of the YouTube video for anybody that might be watching this on YouTube. And if you're not, if you're listening to it on the audio, be sure to go check us out on YouTube. Just search Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. You'll find us. Subscribe. Things are good. Might as well plug ourselves.
Yeah. You'll know him when you get him. He'll go, "Hey, everybody."
That's exactly it. That's exactly the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So we derailed a little bit. Getting back to cook systems. One of the great things about cooking in the woods is the versatility of the different cook sets you can take. don't go, or I shouldn't say, don't plan on going out and buying a specific cook set and thinking that it's going to be your have all end all to go and cooking in the woods. And I'm sure you can think the same thing there, Ben. You usually end up building a cook set that fits your needs for what you're doing and things you like in general, things you just start using and you end up liking it, and that becomes your primary piece of cook gear, but it came out of another cook set and you got like 3 or 4 of them mashed together. Like my little one here is, this is my stainless steel one. It has been used. It comes with 2 pots, and even though they look like they're from the same set, they're not. They're from 2 separate sets. I just happen to like those 2 pots, and I put them together. The lids I include, but they're not really great, and I'm not a big fan of them. But the main point is, don't think you're going to go buy the perfect set for you. Try some stuff. Experiment a little.
And think about what you're going to cook.
Exactly.
Right? Because every trip I go in, we think about the foods we're going to cook. What are we taking? What do we want to do? And we have to adjust our gear to accommodate that. Like if you're taking a lot of dehydrated food, all you need is a little pot. If you're planning on frying something up,
I was just pulling this out. This is a classic GI cup.
Oh yeah.
Made of stainless steel. I got the cover for it. If I'm just going out by myself for a couple days, like 1 or 2 days, 9 times out of 10, that's my cook kit. That's everything. You can make oatmeal in that. You can cook some rice up in that. You can poach an egg in it, or you can even fry an egg in the bottom if you're really not too picky,
oh, yeah.
I guess.
Oh, you definitely can.
But yeah, I mean, that's a prime example of an ultralight cook kit. It goes with my canteen, sets inside, goes inside this black canvas bag, and that's it. That's my whole cook set and my water set all in one.
There's a stove you can get attached to the bottom of that, eh?
I did not know that. See, I'm learning stuff every day.
It's a sleeve that goes on. You can turn it upside down. There's a hole in it. You can stick like a candle or a small alcohol stove underneath it.
I'll have to look into it, see if I can get it all in this little bag. And like I said, the lid goes right in the front, and man, you can brew a wicked cup of tea in that too.
Yeah, I think it's been years, a lot of years. So someone might tell me, "No, Ben, you dreamed that," but I'm pretty sure they use sort of this type of stuff. It's a little tiny, like styrofoam.
One of those fuel cubes.
Fuel cube, and you stick one of those underneath it, sort of like an Isbit stove, which I don't have here to show anyone, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I can remember because I used those in the reserves when I was with the military. But they're a great little system. I've never owned my own, strangely enough.
What, a GI cup and
yeah, I've seen them at Princess Auto and a bunch of other places all the time. I've never.
I'll tell you right now, don't bother going to the Army Navy surpluses or Princess Auto and any of them. But, I mean, if that's all you got, by all means. I'm not saying nothing bad about those companies in any way, shape, or form. Check online. I got mine with the bag and the lid and the canteen, I think, for like $14.
Yeah, I think, actually, honestly, the one in Princess Auto wasn't far off in that a little while ago.
Well, there you go. The last time I seen them in there, I think it was like $14 for the cup and then $11 for the lid, and it just started adding up, right? Same as the Army Navy surpluses. I went online, sold the whole thing. I checked it. It's actual real stainless steel, and it is just an old like military style plastic canteen. I would have liked to have got the stainless steel one of those, but I'll keep my eye open for that later. I mean, the only reason I want the stainless steel is to boil water in, of course, but I mean, I have the cup with it, so not really an issue for me.
No, I mean it's a great system, and it fits on the hip nice, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with them. We've often used just the go to the dollar store or Value Village or anywhere and just get the steel water bottles.
Yeah, much similar to this. I think that's where this one originally came from. It's just it just says a North 49 beverage. The only thing I don't like about it is we talked about this before. It has the plastic on the actual container, which kind of drives me nuts because if I wanted to boil water in this, I got to keep it low enough that the heat doesn't leach up into the plastic and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, once again, not really a big issue with me. I generally always have another method of boiling.
Yeah. I'm not trying to look distracted. There's some of them you can get, they're all metal. The covers are usually plastic, and there's a device peel. I think they call it a fish mouth. It's a coil of metal with 2 hooks on it, and you can put down inside of it, and it springs open.
Okay, no, I don't know what.
If you can pick them up off the fire, and
I know what you mean now. Yeah, sorry.
There it is. See, I have everything.
And this is why everybody tries to go on a budget, because it's an addiction, as you said.
But it's just baling wire. I'm pretty sure that's what this one was. I wrapped it around a pipe, probably about a half-inch pipe, and in two hooks. And you put it inside your cup, and it'll open up, and it springs to the sides, and you can just pick your cup up. And it's really good for if you want to put that metal thing on the fire.
Mm-hmm.
You just put it in, and you can usually pick it up out of the fire, boiling water, and you don't have to worry about burning your hands.
I was just about to say, bring up a good point. Going back to my cook set, you see these little flimsy handles that are on this sucker? Though you guys probably can't pick it up on the camera, most of mine are scorched in one way or another. Always come up with a better pot/pan handling system than what comes with a lot of your pre-purchased kits, because that's generally going to be your weakest points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I oftentimes would cut a stick or something to put through any like the hooks or whatever, just something that I can hook it, because burns hurt.
Yeah, very much so. That what I usually use is, you used to be able to get the old handles. It kind of looks like a can opener, but it almost looks like this whole handle with a hook on the end, and it literally just kind of hooks over the edge and clips on like that, and you can lift your pans up. If you can find one of them at a flea market or something, they used to be really popular back in the 80s. But if you can find one of those, man, those things are great. They'll work on almost any kind of pan, or cast iron's about the only thing I wouldn't go with, because it's just too heavy for it.
I'm pretty sure Mech still sells it.
There you go. Maybe they still do. I don't know. I picked mine up at literally the local flea market here for, I think, 75 cents, because they didn't know what it was. So, I mean...
Yeah, no, they're a great method. I've used them a couple of times over the years. I don't think I own one presently, but I'm sure at some point I had one. Or my parents had one, and I used theirs over the years. But I mean, that's a method that's been around for...
a nice long time, and it works. It's tried, tested, and true. Hey, Randall, no worries about being late, buddy. You can catch us on the reruns. So yeah, now that we've talked a little bit about the sets and the fire methods, unless you got anything else to say on that, I notice our time's running over a little. Do you want to move on to some of the foods we take into the woods?
Yeah, let's move on. I mean, the gist of it is any pot or pan will work, and you can find stuff everywhere. So just experiment, play with it, think about what you're going to do, and choose something. And there's no wrong way. There's
exactly
just a lot of different ways, and some work out better than others.
And as you go along, as you said, you're going to find what works for you. So
we find it.
Don't be scared to try things. If you see something at a flea market, Value Village, something like that, and it's like, oh, I wonder if I could use it in this way. Generally, it's only going to be a couple bucks. Buy it and try it. In all honesty. That's why I go to flea markets. I go to flea markets, love them. Take $10, throw in my pocket. I look around for stuff, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can do this with that or that with that, and I just buy it and try it. That's how I got a lot of my stuff.
I have a lot of these. These I got at the dollar store, just little tin cans. They got a silly plastic thing. But I've built stoves to fit inside them and stuff, and use these as little stoves.
And those are stainless steel too, eh?
Yeah, these are stainless steel, and they work pretty good. I have a small charcoal forge that I use, and I've melted aluminum cans down in these, and they will last for 4 or 5 good firings before they eventually fail.
Succumb to it. Well, there you go. Once again, always in the least expected places. Don't be scared to get out there and look around. Yeah. So, yeah, what's some of the stuff that you like to take into the woods? I know we joked a little bit there at the start that we eat like kings in the woods, but realistically, I know that you can take your pleasure foods, like when you go in with steak or pork chops and stuff like that. But if you're just going in the bush, what's something that you throw in your pack? Because I know I have something I carry in the bottom of my pack anytime I go into the woods, regardless if I'm planning to stay the night or not, and I call it like my ration pack. You got anything like that, Ben?
I have a few things. Like I said, I've changed my diet a lot over the last few years. So one of the things I've come up with is a product called No Oatmeal, and I mix it up myself. You can find it online, but it's essentially oatmeal without any oats in it. But it works the same, and you can get the little oatmeal packs if you eat oatmeal. I mean, and it's great. I'm not knocking it. It's just not for me anymore. That's one of the things. I usually have a few packs of that in my pack. I'll have hot chocolate, a lot of energy in it and stuff. Again, now I tend to make my own version, but tins of wieners, the little Vienna sausages. I don't know if you'll find a newfie who doesn't go in the woods with those occasionally. Um, and if you go into woods in Newfoundland, you can find an empty Vienna sausage under every tree. I swear it's true.
The only other thing that's more Newfoundland than that, if correct me if I'm wrong, because I am not a Newfoundlander at all, but sardines, bread, and molasses.
Oh yeah, those are all pretty high.
Pretty high
Well,
energy, and I haven't met a whole lot of Newfoundlanders that haven't at least tried that or still eat that. I used to work with a feller. I won't mention his last name. His first name was Winston, and I'll try and tag him in this. And I mean, I can still remember going into the office, and he would bring out the half a loaf of bread, the little carton of molasses, and just start cranking open cans of sardines.
yeah, yeah. We always put butter or cream right over the top of the molasses. So, but no, I mean, good times. But those are all great things to take in the woods too. I know a lot of people really like the bannock, and I used to use I think it's Brody is the name. It's self-leveling flour or self-rising flour. It's
I was going to say self-leveling was kind of impressive. I was going to ask you about that after the broadcast.
No, self-rising. So it's you can go in any Sobeys. I should have looked up the name, but little tiny bag, and you just mix water, and it's pretty well ready to go. I've played with that quite a bit.
Nice. Something I've played with, and just kind of side jumping here, is cattail or bulrush. The roots of them, if you dry them out, and if you pull them out straight up, and all the root systems, you clean them off real nice, and you wrap a cloth around them, you can actually tap it, and you'll get this kind of milky paste out of it. And if you lay that out and it dries, it actually turns into a kind of flour, and you can make bannock out of that as well. It's a lot more bitter than what you would expect, but it's still nutritionally sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can eat the root of
and that's all you're doing is extracting the starches, right? So.
And I believe the flour can be ground up into a type of flour.
I think so, but it's only during certain parts of its development, isn't it?
Yes, and I have a book on that, and it describes how to do it. But there's also a thing is with like when you're cooking with flour, the big thing with flour is it contains gluten.
Yeah.
And I know gluten's a bit of a bad word these days, but it is the agent in the flour that binds it together. So a lot of these things, when I have a wild edibles book, and it talks quite a bit about that and how the gluten is the thing hard to get, and you need a binding agent. Egg is a decent binding agent, and so just something to keep in mind. What you're describing almost is like a starch.
Yeah, really. and that's exactly what it is it's extracting the starch instead of the bottom off it, but if you powderize it down, it will work in much the same way as flour, but as you said, without the bonding agent, you're going to end up with more of a biscuit than a bread. It is very dense, very hard, but it does store and you can eat it. Like, I mean, we're getting into the survival aspect of things now, but I have done it just being off in the woods to have bread with something I had if I went a few extra days than I expected to. I've gone in the woods with work a couple times, only expected to be there a day, got fogged in or something like that, helicopter couldn't pick me up, and I'd end up staying a little longer, and I'd be like, you know what, screw this, I'm getting tired of eating basically like the same stuff. I'm going to try and spice this up a bit, and I've attempted some cooking.
Cool. Something I do take, and eggs. If an egg has never been in the refrigerator and hasn't been cleaned, and this is really hard to get, and if you can find someone who can get it for you, I highly recommend it. But eggs will pretty well stay good for like a solid week anyways, from when you get them to when you cook them. As long as you don't, if you refrigerate them, apparently they have to stay refrigerated. And if you've cleaned them up, air can get inside them and they start to go bad. I mean, some of the old ways of preserving eggs was to keep them in flour or ash or anything that would keep the air off of them.
Yep. And I remember growing up, my grandparents had chicken, stuff like that. We'd just take the eggs straight in and store them on the counter for the longest time, like you said, like up to a week, maybe sometimes longer. All we ever did was water test them.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just if you look at any old pictures, that was the normal thing. There was a basket of eggs on the table, and that's just how they kept them.
Exactly. And as Ben said, the only catch is it can't be a store-bought egg because they've been pasteurized as well as cleaned and polished, and they're porous. Air gets in and they spoil. But if you get a fresh farm-grade egg that basically came straight out of the chicken and only a quick wipe down to get some of the surface gunk off it, that thing will
Yeah.
keep for a long time. And the water test I was talking about is just take a cup of water, enough to submerge the egg in with a few inches over top, and put the egg in it. If it sinks, you're good. If it stands up on end, it's right on the edge. And if it floats, turf it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's something we took on our last trip. We found that worked quite well for us. So that the ready crisp bacon we mentioned earlier, um, I don't do it anymore. But an awesome food that I always enjoyed was a can of beans. You cannot beat a
Oh
can of
man, a
beans.
can of beans in the woods.
Yeah. And I must always take something I cook directly over the fire. So wieners, sausages, and all that. I usually have a small freezer pack, and I freeze them solid before I leave. And they usually will stay in a freezer pack for 2 to 3 days before they start to thaw.
Yep.
And as long as you cook them before they've really fully thawed and haven't gotten warm, you're fine. It's a 2 3 day trip. It's easy to take meat really if you're careful and pack it correctly.
And I agree with that completely. Some of the things I take now on the flip side of that, as I said, at the bottom of my pack, regardless of why I'm going to the woods, even if I'm just going in during deer season to go hunting, Marcus and I, if he's still listening, we've gone in to go bird hunting, something like that, and I always carry a bag with me. And at the bottom of it, I have a vacuum sealer here at home because I do process my own game and stuff like that. But what I always try to put in is a cup of oatmeal, which apparently is a dirty word now. I was not aware of that, but I get where you're coming from. Gluten is bad. So a cup.
Oatmeal's bad for that. I mean, I've gone to a keto diet, and that's what I alluded to earlier. And I stay away from anything that's high in carb, and oatmeal's high in carb. There's nothing wrong with carbs, especially. But it was a method I've taken, right?
Yep.
So I've found an alternate to it.
And that's actually good. And once again, anything that I'm mentioning here or that you're mentioning too, people can tailor this to their own needs as well. Like for me, I don't worry about the carbs too much, just because I'm not in the middle of a diet or anything like that, right? I probably should be, but I'm not when I go in the woods. And I always kind of think when I throw this in the bottom is that if I need to use this ration pack, as I call it, it's probably because something happened and I'm there longer than I need to be, and I'm going to need a lot of extra calories. So that's why I go with the oatmeal, right? It's pretty filling. It makes you feel full, and it expands very far beyond its container to give you that full feeling, and it's high in calories because a lot of carbs basically convert directly into calories, right? That's why the
Yep.
keto diet avoids them, is because it's like your higher. The keto diet, from my understanding, and you would know way more than this, and I don't pretend to be a nutritionist, but the keto diet, it weans you away from foods that are very high in sugars and calories, if I'm not mistaken.
Calories are fine. That's the interesting thing is you can eat high fat foods, which is also high in calories, but fat burns differently than sugar. Your body will always consume the sugar first, and it will try and process the sugar. If it can't use it in your muscles right away, it'll start storing it in fat. And that's one of the ways, according to the keto theory, how you gain weight and how you maintain your weight. And it also tends to make you hungrier longer or quicker. So with fats, you'll not get as hungry as quick. And if you're into that, and it's a change. It's not something that happens overnight. I mean, it took me about a week to adjust. And honestly, if I went to eat something different now, I went to Dairy Queen the other day, and I love Dairy Queen. I'm not knocking it, but I felt miserable the next day.
And that's the same as me when I go to eat fast food. I love fast food, but after you eat it, you're always pretty gangly, is what I call it, for the next day. It feels like there's a knot in your stomach. You don't get the energy.
Yeah. Well, I had a headache, and I just felt off, and it's because I haven't had sugar in a long time, and my body went back to having, what's this? It's something totally new again. But yeah, I mean, the beauty of this, and this is what I'd really like to convey, is almost regardless of your dietary restrictions or choices, you can usually think of a food or an alternate. Like for me, I type in keto and whatever food I want, and I'll find it. I will find carrot cakes and brownies and soups and lasagnas, you name it. There's an alternate that can deal with your accommodation. And you can do the same in the woods. Whatever you want, you can find a way of cooking. I've cooked pizzas on a barbecue and top of stuff like that. We've done cupcakes and bread in the woods right over the fire.
Nice. I've done bread, never done cupcakes. You got me there.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to think your way around it a bit. Maybe a bit of a fire reflector, put the coals up to it and next to it, put a piece of aluminum foil or something over the top of sort of like your wind reflector type idea,
Fair enough.
and reflect the heat down. It takes time. Like you do have to. It's not going to be like your oven at home. You're not going to have exactly 425 degrees. You're going to have somewhere between probably 250 and 600, and you just have to try and deal with that. If it's too hot, you're going to have to move it away a little bit. If it's too cold, you're going to have to put it a bit closer. You're going to have to turn it a lot more. It's work, but it's worth it.
And that's a fair point you brought up. The big thing for everybody to take away from this, if you ask me, is cooking in the woods is not as convenient at home. And that's kind of why it's a lot more rewarding, because it's a lot more hands-on. You do got to watch things closer. You are more interactive with your food. You're more in tune to what you're doing. And to me, that's what makes the food taste better, honestly.
Yeah, and experiment, enjoy it. I mean, if it doesn't come out 100% perfect, I think we've alluded to this in a past show. It's the things that didn't work out, or the things that kind of went wrong, is oftentimes the best part of the story. And I mean, hopefully it's still edible, and if you can eat it, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. But you might say it was a little burnt, or it was a little undercooked, but you still got your food in you. And you come out of it healthy and fine, and it's all good, right?
And you learn for next time. Cody McKenna just said oats are gluten-free unless they share a silo or processed with wheat. And yeah. I think he is right there, but you mentioned that as well. It's not the gluten in oats, it's the carbs.
For me, yeah.
So... But yeah, good point, Cody. Good point for anybody that's out there listening. We are coming up on about 55 minutes there, Ben, so we should probably wrap it up. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to come off on this?
No, I mean, we could talk about this for hours, really.
And like most of our topics, it never really ends with our discussion. So we'll probably approach them again in the future, of course.
But get out there, enjoy it, try different stuff. Whatever you have, you can find a way to make it work, and just really get out there and try it. You'll enjoy it. It's going to be great, and report back to us anything that you've successes, failures, things you tried, things you'd like to try. I mean, if we could talk about dehydrated food for a whole day. No problem.
And that's actually something we have on the list for later on, is dehydrated food and food in general for the trail. That it really didn't take part in the cooking. That's why we didn't touch on it a whole lot this time around.
You can even get into food you don't have to cook, jerkies and trail mixes and all that. So tons of fun. But no, I think we've covered a lot. We're definitely going to come back to this subject and expand on it and work at different areas. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
No, honestly, just to reiterate what you said, get out there, try things, experiment. There are no failures, just learning adventures. Always be safe. Don't take any unnecessary chances eating wild mushrooms and stuff like that, of course. But have some fun with it. Try some things. See what works, see what doesn't work. Come back, tell us what worked. Tell us if it didn't work. Like, we're like you guys. We just go out there, we have some fun. Thanks, Mike. I just seen that come up. And yeah, just have fun, experiment. That's what it's all about, right? Is getting out there and enjoying it.
Yeah. It's an experience. It's something you'll remember every meal in the woods a lot longer than you'll remember almost any meal you had at home.
Oh, for sure.
That's been my experience. So get out there, try it, do stuff, talk about it, come back. We want to hear about it. I know I do. I'm sure you do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, anybody that wants to, post up on our page there, the Facebook group, the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures Facebook page. Post it up. Post up anything you want to say, honestly. If you have a little story you want to tell us, we do read that stuff. I float around that thing. I check it once a day to see if anybody's posted anything up. If you have an interesting topic you want to want us to talk about, or you want to come on and talk about something, just shoot us a message.
Yeah. This doesn't work without the viewer and the interaction. It's otherwise it's just me and you talking.
Exactly, and I mean we can do that any time. But yeah, good place for us to wrap it up. I am going to say it. I just seen Matthew Bolger join in. How's it going, buddy? But we are wrapping up the show.
Hey.
If anybody does not know yet, we do have our own website now, which is the AtlanticBushcraft.ca. which will forward you directly to atlanticbushcraft.ca/podcast, where you can find all... Yeah, it's at the bottom. I forgot about that. It's at the bottom there, atlanticbushcraft.ca/podcast. It'll bring you to the podcasts. I try to get them up within 24 hours of us doing them, just the audio feed. I also put them up on our YouTube channel. And when I upload the audio, you can also now find us on iTunes and Google Play by searching Atlantic Bushcraft or Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. If you're into either one of those formats, and you'll find all our podcasts. We've been accepted on both. Things are good. So we are moving along a little faster. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Everybody have a good night.
Night. And thanks for doing all that work and getting that stuff up there, man.
No, man. Don't cut yourself short. Anyway, have a good night, guys.